Hey,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
Did I pronounce your name Ayana?
Ayana, yes.
Ayana. Okay, good. Nailed it.
Yay, yes, you did.
Sweet. Well, cool. It's good. I know we've been connecting over Instagram a little bit, so it's gonna be cool to chat with you and hear more about your story.
Exactly. Oh, and you have a southern accent.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. I grew up in New Jersey
Oh, okay.
and I moved to Richmond about 9 years ago, and then moved to North Carolina like 2 years prior. So like all my friends sound like hillbillies. And I think it just I think it just rubbed off on me.
That is so funny. Okay, yeah. Because I was like, wait a minute, I didn't notice that before.
Yeah. Where are you from?
Well, I was born in Mississippi.
Okay.
But my parents came out here when I was one. So in Vegas, Las Vegas.
Right.
So this is my home.
Okay. Gotcha. Nice.
Hmm.
Is
Yes,
there
yes.
is there really an accent out there? Maybe not.
No, we sound like, we're West Coast, so it's like flat. You know what I mean? So
Right.
there's like nothing. It's just
I guess a lot of people are imported, or I guess.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, sweet. Well, I figure we, talk about, the other things that we discussed. On Instagram. I need to hear about your recent coffee journey as well.
Yes.
But maybe if you want to just give a little bit of background of your story, we can kind of go from there.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I my first diet was at 10 years old. So my mother was a type 2 diabetic and, love her to death. She's no longer with us, but she was not a good student of what she should be doing.
Mhm.
So, she guided me right, in the best of her ability. She put me on her diabetic diet at the time. All right.
Okay.
So that was my first introduction to restriction. So I was like, okay, 1,200 calories. Let me do this. Because I was 10, around, I can't remember how tall I was, but obviously short. And I was weighing more than I weigh now. So, I did need to lose the weight, but I didn't know anything about it, and neither did my mom. So I got on the diet. I was motivated because I was going into middle school and I did not want to be the fat friend because my best friend at the time had lost weight. So I lost the weight. And by the time I got to middle school, I was down 30 pounds. And honestly, I kept it off through middle school, high school, college. It was after I got married, and I was married young. I was 23 when I got married. So after that, the weight slowly came back. And so I was, starting my career as a teacher. I was in grad school, and just being newly married. At that time, I was already introduced to bodybuilding at 16, going to the gym with my older brother and friends. And I was enveloped in like, ooh, I like this lifestyle, right? Even way back then, I knew high protein was the way to go, but that's all I knew.
Mhm.
So as I was gaining weight, I recognized it and I obviously didn't like it. I was introduced to Atkins and I lost like 25 pounds right away,
Wow.
because I was like, whoa, this is fantastic. Light bulbs going off. But I didn't understand the addiction piece and the bad habits I had acquired. So I only lost 25. I should have kept going, but I was reintroducing those foods back and I gained it back. So by the time I was 30, I don't know if you've ever heard of HCG diet, one of the many fad diets out there. But by the time I was 30, I was kind of like fed up. I had gotten to an all-time high of 188 pounds, and I'm only 5'5".
Wow.
And I did 2 cycles of the HCG diet. It's supposed to reset your hypothalamus.
What
I don't
is that?
I don't know what HCG stands for. I forgot. I can look it up for you. But I did it, and I took shots every month. or every day, and you're only eating like 500 to 800 calories.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right? So yeah, I lost 50 pounds. Thank goodness I had a love for the gym. So as I lost the weight, I was working out, and a friend slash trainer approached me and was like, "Hey, you're here all the time. Why don't you compete?" And so I parlayed that into competing.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing like the bro diet, high protein, moderate fat, low carb. And so thank goodness for that, to be perfectly honest, because then I didn't rebound. I increased my calories, obviously, but I moved into that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And for the next 4 or 5 years, I competed NPC level, amateur, because it was a hobby. So I never tried to become pro, but I always wanted to do my best. And so I did that. After I did that, I maintained for quite some time, but it wasn't until I was like 40, I think, 40, 41, I gained the weight back because I had a focus on something else, and I just did not focus on health and fitness anymore and my habits. So for the second time as an adult, I got back up to 188 pounds. That number, I don't know why. And I was like mentally and emotionally drained. I'm like, how did I let this happen? Now I know. At the time I didn't. So I had to dig deep and really tackle mindset more than anything, because I know how to lose weight. I know how to do all that, So during the shutdown, I lost the weight. It was slow because 50 pounds took me over a year. It took me like 14 months. But I've kept it off ever since. And now with the help of my coach, Dr. Sarah, I understand that, yes, it's habits. Yes, it's discipline, because that's super important. But I also have to recognize the addiction components of sugar, artificial sweeteners, and processed foods.
Wow. Okay. I have like 7 follow-up questions.
Okay.
What was your and I do want to touch on food addictions, but like, so when you first started diet, it all sounds to me like caloric restriction was sort of like the overarching theme of the diets. What were you eating before you were, I guess, like right around 10 that you had to go on a diet? Was it just standard American diet, or?
Yeah, I come from a very traditional household. And so, my dad at work all day, comes home, has his, beer or liquor or whatever. And mom put the plate, at the table. So it was always meat, starch, veg all the time.
Okay.
But she was also a baker. So was my grandmother on my dad's side. We have a sweet tooth. My mom was always savory, but everyone else, we always had a sweet tooth. She always baked. So we always had sweets in the house. Mm-hmm. And I would always go to the store with her. And I was like, M&Ms, ooh, yummy. Every single time I would go to the store with her, I'm like, I want M&Ms. And so I just started getting exposed more to those highly palatable foods. Yeah, I would say it had to have been around 4th and 5th grade, because that's when I started to balloon up, because 3rd grade, I was still normal size. But I don't remember reaching for that sugar at that young age. I do remember the transition, although I was exposed to sweets. There's a picture of me where I'm like 2 or 3 years old holding a donut and like eating it and hiding behind the chair and eating it. So I was definitely exposed, but I think the quantity increased. And also hormones, because I got my cycle in 5th grade too. So I really truly feel that standard American diet, even though it was a lot of home cooked meals, but highly palatable foods and my hormones just all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And then, so as far as going from like, obviously you've kind of done like this sort of thing over time, like what was going on in your head or like emotionally that you came off of a diet and then like jumped up to 188 pounds? Like, what do you think the cause of that is? Is that like underlying food addictions, or is that like an emotional thing, or both?
I as long as I can remember, I have had a mental battle in my brain. Like it's exhausting when you think about it. When I think about it I remember as a teenager, and I was normal size. I kept the weight off until after I got married. So like I've had long stints of being lean. It's just that when it gets out of hand, it gets out of hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember sitting in the car while my mom was driving, and I was looking out the window. I don't know why this sticks with me so much. I was a teenager, normal size, whatever. But I was still in my brain like, why can't I control my eating? Because even then, even though I was controlling it, it was so difficult mentally. And I was like, why can't I do this? This is the one thing I can't do because I excel in everything else. But to answer your question, when I got to 188 in my 20s, it was a gradual, slow thing, right? It was quick in my late 30s. So that situation in 2018, 2019 is when it went up. I truly was devoted so much of my time to excelling in my career because I thought I wanted to go up into administration. Decided not to do that, but that's what I was focused on, like 110%. Mm-hmm. So I stopped going to the gym. I stopped counting my macros. I just ate. And I think that is what honestly happened. And I was also volunteering a lot in my, I'm in my religion, my faith-based community. Mm-hmm. So I was doing a lot with that. And those things are good, career, faith, all that. But it was not balanced because then I abandoned the health and fitness.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And what would you say, and I know we were on a post, I think it was a Lane Norton post, where he was talking about like food addiction isn't real. Like it's not an addiction like alcohol or smoking. And it didn't make a lot of sense to me because I guess there's no studies or whatever that show that. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but looking around at the average person, it does seem like they are addicted to food based on, the numbers of 72% of people being overweight or obese. And I guess what's your take on that? Like, is food addiction real?
Yes. I was a skeptic just 6 months ago because when I had to lose the 50 pounds a second time as an adult, I did a lot of mindset work, a lot of discipline work. I kind of even went back to my competing days because that's what really taught me discipline more than anything else in my life. So I do believe that has a lot to do with it. You have to be strong-minded, you have to be disciplined, and that's a daily practice, right? Mm-hmm. However, we can't ignore the evidence out there. All you got to do is go out and look around. Everybody is overweight or, obese, one or the other. So our brains light up when we eat sugar, or let's just say at least highly palatable foods, sugar and fat combinations. Everyone does. Not everyone is addicted. But we definitely have a lot of people that abuse it and they kind of come to their senses and they stop. And then you have some people who truly have a very difficult time to stop and they have to eliminate it. But our brains are wired to chase dopamine. So you could be addicted to pornography. You could be addicted to sugar, highly palatable foods, smoking, whatever. For alcohol, it never did anything for me. I stopped drinking like 2.5 years ago, and I did not think about it once afterwards. I was like, whatever. I stopped because of gut issues. You know what I mean? So it's going to be different for everybody. And there is, I will have to see if I can find a study for you, but my coach talks about this a lot, and several other people that when they tested rats, they kept going for the saccharin, artificial sweetener, over the heroin. And heroin is very addictive versus the cocaine studies that we know about, right? So, and then anyone listening, read Hooked by Michael Moss. That's going to open up your eyes to the food industry, because it all started with tobacco and then they shifted their focus onto the food industry. So.
Oh, right. Yeah. They own all the distributors, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like it's sort of a ridiculous comparison. Or maybe it's like, maybe it is actually a good comparison between alcohol and food, because we are given the drug, whatever that might be, like processed food. Like I know Dr. Sarah talks about this all the time, like the age of onset, as far as you have it when you're a child. I mean, I would assume if you would have never gotten it in the first place, you can't be addicted to it. Just like alcohol, right? Like if you never had alcohol, like you're not going to develop alcoholism.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so true. And and yes, I still feel it's individual. There are some people who can take a piece of cupcake, eat it, and they're like, okay, that's awesome. I'm good. I can move on. Whereas that cupcake's going to be on my brain, wanting more. But I'm actively right now working very hard at being in control of my thoughts and using intense exercise to help with my dopamine responses, because that really has shown to help all kinds of addiction behavior type of thing. So because I feel that I can, take control of that, and so that it will then be seen in my actions, because I don't want to be a slave to anything, so to speak.
Right. It's sort of like removing, I mean, if you're going to get the same I guess dopamine response to food and exercise, like exercise is a clear replacement for it. Because like you said, like we're craving it either way. It's like you might as well get it through exercise or sauna or jump in a ice bath or whatever thing you want to do.
That's exactly.
You said you mentioned Atkins before, and I'm sort of familiar with that. That's like a low carb diet. How does that differ from a carnivore diet?
Okay, so Atkins, yes, it was mid 2000s that I was introduced to Atkins and read his book. And I would have to say, for listeners out there, that I am referring to the Dr. Atkins 2001 and prior. So after he died, sadly, money tainted it a little bit, and that's when you have a lot of your Atkins bars and stuff like that. So his original writings, 2001 in the 90s and the 70s, was Whole Foods. So he was an advocate of, meat first. And he learned from Banting, Dr. Banting, a doctor long time ago. And so it was, he did the 20 total carbs as far as macros were concerned. In his mind, that's all you needed to pay attention to, was 20 total, not this net stuff. 20 total carbs if you wanted to add in veg and berries or nuts or dairy. But it was mainly meat focused, honestly. Like I still have the book on my phone, the PDF version of the 1970 version, and it's all meat, eggs, chicken, poultry, fish that you want. And then, the 20 total carbs and dairy. He even says in there with dairy, because it is included in that carb count, you still have to be careful. And that's really what it was. Later on, he added phases. Okay, you can add 5 carbs back in. Let's see how you feel. And you can keep doing that until you find your threshold. That can be later.
Understood. Okay. So it's mostly, I guess, a ketogenic sort of diet. And like what diet and protocol do you follow now to make sure that you don't go back to old habits and get up to, like you said, 188 pounds again?
Yeah, yeah. So, wow, it's been like going on 3 years now. So I'm proud that I've, maintained and I continue that. And especially now that I know more about myself, and why it happened in the first place. The last time I put on the 50 pounds, in 2018, 2019, I now refer that as, a relapse. Yes, all the other stuff happened that I told you before about my focus was not there, but also I was grabbing the foods that are highly palatable. So I like to call myself like meat-based, animal-based, only because I hate labels. Like I really hate labels. I'm in the carnivore community because I lean towards that. But like I don't want to get like caught by the carnivore police because I'm like not like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, oh, I hate that stuff. I hate it. So
It's
that's why
like,
I usually just say animal-based, meat-based. But yeah, I mean, I honestly, I eat meat and eggs all day. And when I say meat, anything that had a mother, land and
mhm,
sea, right? I feel best that way. But because I do have to be aware of my restrictive behavior sometimes and what that can do, because I don't want to binge. I do not want to binge. So I have to be careful not to put too much restriction around myself.
okay.
So there will be times at night where after dinner, I will have like full fat Greek yogurt
Mhm.
with some berries, just because I'm like, okay, I want that. And I'm not a bad carnivore. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So do I do that every night? No, but I don't like to have too much restriction because then that could lead to bad behavior for me personally. So,
Mhm.
and I'm still working on the artificial sweeteners because it's in everything. Like, okay, I I'm not doing the diet soda, right? I'm not doing that. I will sometimes still use electrolytes in my water, especially like today after I did my back workout. I did back and then I ran 7 miles. So I was like, I want some electrolytes, but I know I don't need it. I can just add salt, but I did. So there's things that creep in like that,
Mhm.
but I don't want to get too caught up with the minutia because then that'll lead to bad behavior.
Sure, sure. And I mean, you seem successful. I mean, obviously you're in great shape and
Thank you.
see your workouts on Instagram. And so I feel like you're right where it is highly individualized. And some people have to have a zero tolerance policy, or maybe even for a while,
Mhm.
right? Until they can gain control back.
Yeah, and I've seen that. Nutritionist Judy Cho actually mentioned that in her podcast. She was strict carnivore, first lion for a while, and then normal carnivore after that. And now she can have something off her daughter's plate or a bite of ice cream or this or that, whatever. Not as part of her diet, but she can have that and she's not going to go off the rails.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
And that artificial sweetener is in everything. It took me a long time to dial that back. When I went to carnivore again, I was drinking a lot of Zevia. Have you seen that?
Yes, I love the cream soda or the root beer or whatever,
Yeah.
whichever one like that. Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm just like, because I don't really eat any sugar at all, like it actually tastes like a soda to me. I'm not sure if someone that drank soda would think it's like it's
Oh,
horrible
oh
tasting.
no. No, 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 no. In fact, I've always been on the cusp with my friend group of like, oh, Ayana, what are you doing now? Because they were with me when I was competing, so I was in a strict way even then. But like I can have a diet soda, and I'm like, oh no, is that the regular thing? And I'll have my husband or a friend taste it, and they're like, yes, what are you talking about? Of course it's diet. And you know what I mean? But I can't
Right.
tell the difference.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't tell the difference. I don't know. But yeah, the thing that trips me up though, it's not really the liquids. It's not really like the electrolytes or a little stevia in my coffee. It's not that. For me, my drug food that I have to really be careful about or not have at all are the imitation desserts. imitation foods, like the keto desserts or treats or foods
Oh.
like that. That is what is like,
I get so pissed at I guess like keto got big and then it got infiltrated by all these companies that want to make $1. And it's like, you could really, I mean, you could eat keto pancakes with keto syrup, with keto. I mean, I even saw like keto, like fudge brownies or something like that at Trader Joe's. And I'm like, this is not, I mean, I get it. Like it's low carb or whatever, but it's got a bunch of other crap in it, like artificial sweeteners and maybe seed oils or whatever. But you're just, if you have a food addiction, you're sort of just running down the same path.
Exactly. And that is what I am currently working on. Like I told my husband, I was like, you know what? For a moment, I'm not going to be able to make your keto desserts. Like I'm not. I'm sorry. So like I just can't. Like I know my limits. Like yogurt is not necessarily going to trip me up. You know what I mean? But that will. I have to be honest with myself. That will. I'm not there yet. I feel one day I will be if like, there's an event. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I can't remember, maybe 2020, I don't know, 2021, we celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary, right?
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And my friends loved them to death. We have a keto bakery here in Las Vegas, downtown. And she's extremely good baker. I mean, excellent baker. So they got us a keto cake. And I am telling you, it was so good. I was like, it was too heavy for my husband, but he also doesn't have like my issues. But so I had a piece and I'm like, oh my God, that's so good. I kept going back for more and more and more. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was like, we have to give this away. So I gave some to my brother and his wife, and then my dad and his wife. My mom, she was still with us at the time. She was like, oh, I'll just have a little bit. She's more of a savory, carby person. Mm-hmm. And then I literally had to throw the rest away because I had to get it out of the house, like out.
Yes. I think that's huge for people. Like I talk to a lot of people who are trying to do, a more, I guess you call it restrictive. I don't think of it as restrictive anymore just because I enjoy doing it so much.
Yes.
But it would be a lot more difficult if these foods were in my line of sight every day. So like my wife pretty much eats like me. Like she's definitely not as strict, but we don't have ice cream in the house. We don't have potato chips in the house. Like there's no junk food where I'm even tempted. Yes. We'll joke a lot because I'm like, hey, what do you want for dinner tonight? She's like, what are my options? She's like, you make me burger patties and or steak. That's all you make at night. So
exactly. I know. I feel the same way because like last night I made boneless pork loin ribs. Mm-hmm. And so good. And I was like, well, what do you want on the side? And he's like, I don't know. He goes, let's give me sweet potatoes because I know you didn't make anything for sides. So we do have baked sweet potatoes there for him whenever he wants something in addition. But I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's meat.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. And how is it socially for you, or like even like with your relationship with your husband as far as eating this way?
You know what? Okay, as far as my husband is concerned, he's all for it because he told me years ago, and now I get it. Back then I was highly offended, but he told me years ago, he goes, Ayana, the way you are with food is the way, because he grew up in the barrio. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but in a poor area, gangs, everything, and that was the environment he lived in, unfortunately. But he saw a lot of addicts, like a lot of drug addicts in the neighborhood. And he would see like how they would act, whatever. Anyways, he goes, the way you act around food is what I saw growing up. And I was like, how dare you? But I get it. You know what I mean? I understand it now. So he's okay with this way of eating for me because he sees how beneficial it is for me. And he's definitely, I would consider him truly animal based. I said that for myself just because I don't like labels, but he's truly all meat and then sweet potato, fruit, stuff like that. But he does like his keto treats. And as far as friends are concerned, they get it. They respect me. You know, I had a friend years ago who was a food pusher, and I pushed away from her because I'm like, no, I can't have you around me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they get me, which is nice.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that's like, I know I've heard Dr. Sarah talk about this, but it's interesting when you are at like a family party or like a work gathering or whatever, like how people like now that you're sort of like, I feel like I'm on the outside, like kind of observing and like looking in how people treat certain foods, get excited for certain foods, and then want you to do them with them.
Oh, yes.
It's almost like alcohol. Like when you stop drinking alcohol, people think it's like, oh, there's something wrong with that guy. He doesn't drink. They figure you had like a crazy past of alcoholism or something.
Yes. And I have to explain to people, I mean, my husband hasn't had a drop of alcohol. He was more of an abstainer with a lot of different things than I ever have been, but he has a stronger mind, but he just saw so much bad growing up that he just was like, I don't want to be a part of that. I'm not having that. So he cut a lot of stuff out after a while. So, but he has to do that all the time. No, I just don't drink. You know, I just don't drink. And me, I have to be like, well, no, I don't drink anymore because people remember me drinking. But I'm like, my body has changed as I've gotten older. My gut does not like alcohol. Like I reacted differently, you know, and it was bad. So I'm like, no, I'm not having alcohol anymore. But yeah, you have to explain it. And real quick, a couple of weeks ago, my aunt came to visit because my dad had surgery, right? And we went to Cheesecake Factory, and she's like, you have to have a cheesecake with me. You have to split a cheesecake with me. And I was like, well, I don't eat that. She goes, just have a few bites, and she's a very strong-willed person. And I'm like, oh gosh. And I still feel like a child around, you know, my aunts and uncles sometimes, you know. So the cake was brought, and because I did not want to deal with, you know, explaining myself even further, we were busy talking, and I got into the conversation, and I got her talking, and I just like was quietly smashing the cake so it looked like I ate it.
Right.
And then it was like time to take the plate away, and she did not know the wiser. But usually I say no when I'm, you know, but she was my aunt, so it's a little different. But
sure. And it's interesting that you bring that up because like we're always told, like as a kid, it's polite. Like you always accept the food. Like when you're at someone's house, like, and they make you food, like you don't want to, especially in certain cultures. Like my wife's family is from Mexico, and they're always cooking. There's always like all kinds of food, and you're like, oh no, they're gonna offer me something, right? And I'm gonna feel terrible about it. But yeah. It's like, would you say that you have to have like almost like an identity change?
You know what? It's so funny you said that, because I actually had a conversation with Sarah about this. I'm like, man, do I have to identify as a carnivore almost so that it is all encompassing, at least in my brain? Because people on the outside, I think, identify me as a carnivore more than I do. I think that's just because I'm thinking of the minutia of it, whereas other people are not. I think that's why. But you do have to kind of latch on to identity with this. I feel, so that it is more cemented with you to practice it, and for other people to recognize it so they don't push on you as much. I hate to put the way people eat as almost like a religion sort of like, you know, aspect or perspective of it, because I'm not about that. I'm like, do what works for you. Be, you know, if it doesn't work this week, try something different. I don't know. I'm very flowy that way. But yes, I feel that you do have to make it an identity somewhat.
Yeah,
I do.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Sticking on the carnivore thing, like what would you say to, so this is something that I deal with like all the time, where I'm talking to somebody, it could be a friend or a family member or just a, random person on the internet. And they might have, there's some goal that they're trying to attain, whether it's weight loss or they have an autoimmune thing going on or whatever. And it seems to me like if carnivore is the answer for them, they are dragging their feet and they're doing everything but that. They're like, well, I want to try this medication first, or I'm going to try this supplement first, or I'm going to try this XYZ thing that I read on the internet first before I get there. Like, what would you like? How do you explain it to people, or motivate them to give it a shot?
Wow. Okay, so those are some big whys, right? If you don't have a why that makes you cry, and I think I heard that from Dr. Weidman, or carnivore doctor, it's going to be difficult. So, wow, you have to want to do it a little bit at least, and you also have to have a strong why. You can't necessarily convince someone to do something that they're not 100% in. What I would suggest is, slowly trickling in information to them, like, oh, hey, watch this video, I really liked it. And it might explain how this person got help from this way of eating, or show them something sciencey, like, oh, wow, did you know that this helps with this? Because I've done that in my life with my brother and with other people that I really would love to try it.
Yeah.
Because of like GERD or Crohn's disease, you need a low fiber diet to really help with that situation. Or, an elimination diet would really help you with your autoimmune, because then you can at least, if you want, afterwards add back in things to see how you react, right? Or eating disorder, food addiction. It could probably cut off that, cycle of like wanting to reach for that drug food. But you have to want to, because even I am the most rebellious person. I am like, I realized as I get older, I'm like, wow, I'm impulsive, I'm rebellious, I'm a questioner. So to really tie me down to do something, it's hard. It is very hard. Even with this carnivore journey, I have been rebellious through and through. And I'm still pushing back on certain things. I'm like, I don't want to, right? But yeah, I just think that, like, lead by example, show how you're benefiting from it so well, and then just drop nuggets here and there to hopefully motivate them.
It's interesting that you say that you're rebellious, because all of the people that I've met in this community have that in common. And I feel like you have to be rebellious, curious, healthy distrust for authority to even do something like this.
I know. That is funny that you mentioned that. Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I have noticed that as well. You have to have that independent thinking, or that question, you know what I mean? That skepticism, or at least that like desire to like know more, Yeah, that is funny. That's true.
Yeah, like even the doctors that I talk to, or Dr. Sarah's story, or I did a podcast with a functional medicine doctor that I've been seeing for years, and they all have the same, like, oh, well, I was taught this, but what I really found out was this, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with curiosity too. Like, I've noticed the more curious I get about diet and whatever, seed oils and all that stuff, like the more I learn about it, then like it's just like it's like a healthy spiral in the right direction.
It is. And the seed oils, man, I sometimes when I read about that, I'm like, man, what is worse, seed oils or sugar? I'm like, it is so bad. So that's another thing. The more you know, the more you're like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a true awakening is what it feels like.
It is. It is.
So I want to talk about coffee.
Mm.
Did you quit coffee a couple days ago?
Okay, so I did. Okay, so I haven't had it since Sunday. Since well, Saturday night, Sunday, and then Monday. Today's Tuesday, right? So this is day 3. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I decided because I want to optimize my sleep.
Yeah.
And I did not realize that it affected my sleep as much as it did because I've been a coffee drinker since teenager, so I don't want to go. That's a lot of years. So, um, and I don't need it for the buzz or for the alertness, but I think that's just because my body is so used to it that I could have a cup of coffee and go right to sleep.
Mhm.
But is the sleep good? You know what I mean? Is it sound? So when I cut it out before, I realized I was like, ooh, my sleep was really deep. And I've noticed that this time, although yesterday was the worst day because I was driving to the gym because I'm off of work right now until August. So usually I'm at the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I take my time. But I was driving to the gym around 8, whatever, no coffee. Um, I was like a zombie. And I'm like, should I even be going to the gym right now? I was thinking about driving back, but I did my workout. It was the worst workout ever. And then I was just like, let me go home. And I came home and I slept some more. Today I'm normal. Today I'm fine. Right.
Right.
In social situations, will I have a decaf coffee or tea? Sure. But yeah, I really like the idea of not having that in my system all the time.
Yeah. How did you notice the sleep has been last couple of days?
I did not wake up.
Yeah.
Like usually I wake up at like 2, 3, like in the morning or whatever. And I know there's a reason for that if you follow the circadian whatever
Hmm.
some clock. But anyways, I slept through the night, both nights in a row. And like usually I'm so wired because my personality, I'm that way anyways. But I'll be tired and then I'll get a burst of energy right before it's time to go to bed. And then I have to calm myself down again. And then I'm up at 2 and I'll calm myself down and go to sleep. And then I'm up at like 4 or 5, like I normally should be because
Hmm.
I go to bed early, but you know what I mean? The last couple of nights has been sound all the way through.
Wow.
That's how it was last time. So I was like, okay, I need to stick with this.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was learning about it, and because I cut it out, probably maybe on the same day that you did, maybe the day before you did. So I think it's day 4. But now that you mention it, I have been sleeping all the way through the night, and the other thing was that the quarter life of caffeine is like 12 hours. So it's like if
Oh,
you have your 200 milligrams of caffeine, say at like 12 p.m. or something like that, right?
okay.
Maybe you had your cup of coffee. You still have 50 milligrams floating around in your system 12 hours later. So a
Mm.
lot of people have that second cup of coffee, let's say at 12 p.m. So at 12 a.m., the later that night, you got 50 milligrams. That would be like just drinking like a quarter cup of Starbucks, like right before you go to bed.
Interesting.
Yeah, and hoping that you are just going to get a good night's sleep.
I know because
I would
okay,
never do, right? I would never drink coffee that late, ever.
no, never. And so like that's like, yeah, 200 milligrams is like a cup of coffee or a little bit less or whatever.
Hmm.
So, oh my goodness. So okay, at Starbucks they have the venti.
Yeah.
So that's like a standard. So a venti, if you break it down, 24 ounces, it's 3 cups of coffee. And I would usually have Americano. So, and nothing in it, because if I added anything, I would do it myself because I like just coffee, or it'd be a dark roast, whatever, of just the coffee, because I don't like all the fancy coffees, obviously, being in the lifestyle we're in, right? And so, and then even later on, before I was really trying to keep it at bay, I would have like a Dr. Pepper Zero, like, so that's a lot of coffee. So
Yeah. I'm excited to know about the next, I guess, 30 days or so for you, and see if we have a similar experience. Because like you, I started in my teenage years, and it was a normal thing. I saw my dad drink a lot of coffee, and it was just like a family thing. And I was like, oh, I just want to be one of the guys, drinking the coffee.
Absolutely. And my brother, my mom never did. She always had a sensitive stomach, but my brother, my dad, like, it's a thing. And my dad has a sweet tooth, so sweet condensed milk, right? He would use that as creamer.
Yeah, I bet that's pretty good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've noticed that the workouts have helped, even though like the second day or something, I wanted to sleep like forever. It was like, maybe it was just such a good sleep. I slept until like 8 a.m., which I never do. I like woke up, or it was like 8:15 or something. I looked at my phone, just like, oh my God, I can't believe I slept so late. But the sleep was incredible.
It was horrible. The second day was horrible. I was like, why am I doing this? But no, then the headache went away 12 hours later. I didn't even take anything for it because I had a massive headache on top of it. And the headache went away. And I was like, okay, I got this. So
yeah. Did you notice the exercise help with it? To feel better or no?
I truly don't know. I think our bodies adapt so easily. You know what I mean? They really do. It's a wonderful machine. We adapt. We're always trying to reach homeostasis, right? Always. And so I think it just, whatever is missing gets compensated for, and vice versa. So who knows? Maybe it does. I don't know.
Something I wanted to ask you about is like, what is you're obviously someone that's in the gym a lot. So like, what does your weekly workout routine look like?
So let's see. I usually weightlift like 5 days a week is what I normally do. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 4, because I like to like create a program or use a program that I like for at least 6 to 8 weeks, right? So I can see my progression on my lifts or whatever. But I do train like a bodybuilder, not a power lifter. So I'm not doing 1 rep maxes or anything like that. I have a lot of volume, but I usually start off with a compound movement. So like if it's, so for me, just an overview, 5 days a week, because I am working on parts that need more work, in my opinion. So I will have like Monday, for instance, will be a glute focused day, glute and leg, right? And then Tuesday will be back and shoulders, back more focused than shoulders. And I'll throw in an arm, bicep, tricep exercise in there. Then Wednesday will be glute focused again, but maybe glute and hamstring more, right? And then Thursday will be maybe shoulder focused, but throw in some back stuff in there as well as arm. And then Friday will be glute focused with also quad focus, right? And so I rarely do chest. I probably work out chest maybe twice a month, calves twice a month, because I don't need to work on those areas. But obviously, you know what my focus is because that area for women, it's just more. And I also try to, do pull-ups every once in a while. Like, I can do like 5 or 6 pull-ups.
Wow. That's very impressive.
In a row, whatever. I like to try to do stuff like that too. But yeah. And then as far as cardio is concerned, right now, because it's summer and I have time, I am doing more cardio than normal. I am. So I'll sometimes do no cardio, which is just like a 10-minute warm up before my weights. Now I'm like running 7 miles in a little over an hour. But that also has to do with my rehab program I'm in with Sarah, to cut down the cravings, raise the dopamine, cut down the cravings, and it does work. When I go back to work, I'll probably scale it back to just an hour, 5 to 6 days a week, in addition with my weight training. And then as we get closer to winter, I'll probably bring down the cardio just a tad, because I'm signing up for a half marathon in December. So I can't bring it down too much. I know. So, but after the half marathon, I will be working on bringing it down even more after that. Because I like to use cardio, honestly, as a tool, so that if I want to cut for summer, I can bring cardio back in and use it to create a deficit, along with, creating a deficit in my food, if I so choose to do that. So I like to use that as a tool. Right now, I'm just doing more than normal because I'm training for the marathon and doing the rehab thing with Sarah. So, yeah.
And how do you, like, a lot of people will ask me this, like, how do you work out if you don't have any carbohydrates in your diet?
Well, when you first adapt, it is rough. But honestly, for weightlifting, for building muscle, all you need is protein, water, and rest and stimulation. So the protein is going to help build that muscle. So you need protein. Most people are not eating enough protein at all. It's really sad. Even and obviously water, and you need rest and the stimulation. If you are pushing yourself in the gym and you're making progression week by week, even if it's small, you're increasing that muscle mass. So protein is necessary along with that stimulation of the muscle. So fat is our energy source as keto carnivore people. Fat is our energy source. So do you need to go crazy with the fat? No, not in my opinion. I'm not against the stick of butter a day. I'm not, even 80-20 ratio for me is too much fat. I just didn't like it when I tried it. So yeah, but fat is still your fuel that you can use for that energy. But when you first dive into this way of eating, the adaptation does suck. It takes some people a few days, some people a few weeks, but they're back to their norm. You know what I mean? So, but it can be done. Just look at Keto Savage, Colt Milton. There's a few carnivore keto bodybuilders out there, so.
Yeah, that's cool. That's what I was expecting you to say.
Yes.
As far as being on like an animal-based diet or carnivore diet, like obviously this has helped big time with food addictions. Like, what other areas have you noticed any improvement in other areas?
For sure, muscle mass, for sure. Because I remember when I was because I'm still in a little deficit right now. I'll be reverse dieting soon, but I'm still in a little bit of a deficit right now. But when I'm at maintenance, I can have a higher maintenance caloric intake, or macro, whatever you want to call it, since people are crazy about that too. I can have a higher one as a carnivore, animal-based person than I did ever before. So I can maintain at 2,000, 2,100 calories, the best you can measure, which for me, that's good. But standard American, it would be lower for my maintenance. You know what I mean? I don't know. But the muscle mass, like your body composition just is on fire when you are keto carnivore, especially leaning more towards carnivore, because it's just more meat based. So that protein just really helps muscle mass increase for sure. And then I would have to say, besides the, handling that and the food addiction piece, is the gut. That's what I noticed for me. I don't have any autoimmune issues as of yet. Hopefully not ever. We'll, hopefully. But the gut, I mean, I was always bloated. I was always like, oh, let me take this or that always. And even when I was competing, they had me take colon cleanse a lot. It's a pill that you can take, and it's just, makes you flat regardless of what you eat. And I was always doing stuff like that because I was always bloated. And I'm like, I hate this. Once I came to this way of eating for a substantial amount of time, it just went away.
Okay, that's interesting. I had the same experience with gut, and then also with you can look in my cabinet. I probably have like 40 something supplements that I was taking for a myriad of reasons. But I'm now I look in there, I'm like, what the hell is all this shit?
I know it's a lot because we have L-glutamine in there, which I think that, some things are good. Like, that does help your stomach and other things. But, oh yeah, so many digestive enzymes and stuff that I don't need now.
Do you take any supplements now?
The one thing I will always take, is vitamin D3/K2. It's a liquid. Because yes, I live in Vegas, yes, I get the sun, but my vitamin D levels, if I am not supplementing, are low. I think when I wasn't taking anything, even though I was meat-based and all that, it was in the 30s, and then I got it up into the 50s. Once I started taking the liquid form, last time I checked, it was like 80s or 90s, which is optimal. Yeah, because and also being dark skinned, how was it explained to me? We have a high level of like low vitamin D because of the melanin in our skin, we're getting even less of what we need from the sun. So that's another reason too.
Yeah. I'm working on this idea, and it's like, I'm gonna try to flesh it out with you maybe. Where it's like, if you're eating correctly, and for me, that happens to be, a carnivore diet, right? You don't, in previous iterations of my diet, I've always needed, in reaction to what I was eating, some sort of supplement. So it's like I would eat like a pizza. I'd eat like regular people everyday food, and then I needed to add like a digestive supplement or something like that.
Right.
Or now I'm seeing with coffee, it's like a lot of people are drinking coffee, but now they need like melatonin at night, or they need some sort of thing to go to sleep, right? And it's like, if you dial it back to what I think is the appropriate way of eating, at least it is for me, now I don't have the reaction to that negative thing where I don't need any supplementation because there's not the negative reaction, which was just caused by the thing I was eating the whole time. I thought I had gut issues where I needed a supplement, right? But it was like, no, you were eating, I don't know, whatever it might be, salad, pizza, or, whatever.
And a lot of foods even that I fell into the trap of that were labeled keto. God, has so many, like, the ingredient list is just ridiculously long. And so that's going to mess up your gut too. And I don't care how my journey turns out. One thing I am not interested in bringing back veggies ever, because that is like the worst culprit for me. Veggies and starch, like, wheat, bread, pasta, all that, starchy stuff, and veggies. Those two things out of everything else just wreaks havoc on my gut.
Oh my gosh.
Horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that. I think veggies are so funny that it's like, it was always pushed as like the best thing for you to eat. You got to eat your vegetables. And even since like I was a kid, it was like, you hated them. I was in the supermarket the other day and this kid was saying, I don't want vegetables. He was yelling at his mom. And I'm like, we know, like, it's like almost like an instinct. Like we know since we were kids, like, I don't like this. I remember
No.
never having a problem when my parents served steak or chicken or anything like that.
Exactly. And I was not a picky eater. I ate the vegetables, whatever, but it was always under a sauce or some cheese. Like, you know what I mean? Growing up, where I mixed it in with everything else. You know what I mean? But yeah, like I didn't like, ooh, I want veggies. Like, no, it was always because it was with something else, Yeah, no.
No, I think that instinct, and I think I've heard Dr. Chafee talk about that a lot, where it's like you kind of instinctually know when foods are obviously not the processed foods because they're tricking you to be palatable.
Yes.
But it doesn't, like, the more curious I get about this, it just doesn't make sense for us to be eating them, or at least have it to be a large part of your diet, especially if you're having issues. Like, well, give it a shot. Give it 30 days. Like, there's nothing bad's going to happen.
Exactly. That's how I feel. And even though like I'm still working on a few of my things personally, that's just like, you don't have to convince me to not eat broccoli. Or you know what I mean? Or even the more palatable stuff like bread or pasta or rice or all the starchy stuff, because it's like it just sits in your stomach like concrete, at least for me.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, they think that they're getting their veggies for a specific reason that they usually can't articulate. And it's like, if you look at the vitamin breakdown of, say, just meat, something, you're getting everything that you need. I mean, maybe there's people that think you need fiber, right? And that's fine, but that would be the only thing in a vegetable that you can't get in meat.
Yeah, and like, this whole fiber thing. I'm no Dr. Chafee or Dr. Zaldivar, but it just doesn't make any sense, the whole fiber thing. And I guess because I'm exposed to so many people in my life, family and friends, that have issues with their gut, where they are then told, because it's the last resort, the doctor's like, okay, well, let's put you on a low FODMAP diet or a low fiber diet. I was like, yeah. But still, I just got my certification in sports nutrition through NASM. And there's a whole section on fiber. And it was talking about how, this is not digestible and, all this stuff. And that section on carbs and fiber, it was almost like they were making a reason for why you needed to have it. But when you just got down to the biology, they even admitted that it's not essential and that we're not meant to break it down.
Interesting.
And I'm like, it was crazy, but.
Yeah, I'm glad that doctor even mentioned that, because usually people are told that, well, you just need more fiber.
Yes, exactly. So that was, my friend, she has Crohn's disease, and so she cannot, and I'm like, well, good, I'm glad they told you that,
Yeah.
So
it's a great thing. And it's like important for, like, people like you to come out and spread this message, and for people to realize that there is an alternative to maybe what they've been hearing for their entire lives.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. And same with you. It's like, I like, our community is definitely growing, and, the only caution I have is like, don't follow every trend, just eat meat. And
right. Yeah. That's a very old trend. We've been doing that for a long time. Yeah. It's not a trend anymore, I guess.
No.
Well, cool. Well, can you tell people where they can find you online?
Yes, honestly, it's the same everywhere. Pilar Fit Vegas, and that's Pilar Fit Vegas on Instagram and YouTube, as well as Threads. Now that we're on Threads, which is like a Twitter version. It's like Twitter version on Instagram. It's a new one. And I'm loving it because I don't know, I just feel so unhinged on there because it's like Twitter, so you can just like type whatever you're feeling. So yesterday when I was going through the headaches, I'm like, headaches suck, and my workout was horrible.
Right.
I don't know. It's just like I feel more free. But no, I'm mostly on Instagram, and I am definitely on Threads and YouTube, Pilar Fit Vegas, and TikTok. I always forget my name on TikTok because I had to change it a little bit, but it is Pilar Fit LV.
Okay.
Yeah. Pilar Fit LV on
Very cool.
TikTok.
Yeah, I'll put those all in the show notes. And now that you're, I mean, I know you have your certification and stuff. Do you build workout programs for people?
Well, I'm definitely working on getting that coaching side going. It's a process, and I'm kind of using a couple of people as guinea pigs right now,
Nice.
because that is definitely something I want to do in the future, for sure. It's on my radar.
Okay. Awesome. Yes. Yeah, you seem like a good person to learn that from.
Yes, thank you.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast.
Yes, very fun. Very fun.